So I'm gonna read this important scripture for what is the problem with eavesdropping? Ecclesiastes chapter 7, verse 21, verse 22. Ecclesiastes 7, verse 21, verse 22. Do not pay attention to every word people say, or you may hear your servant cursing you. For you know in your heart that many times yourself have cursed others. Ecclesiastes chapter 7, verse 21, verse 22. Don't eavesdrop on the conversation of others. What if the gossip's about you and you rather not hear it? You've done that a few times, haven't you? Said things behind someone's back you wouldn't say to his face. The Bible already prophesies it. So also, don't take seriously everything that it says, so that you will not hear your servant cursing you. For you also know that you too have cursed others many times. Listeners near here have good themselves. Eavesdropping is secretly listening in a private conversation that you have not been invited to be a part of. Eavesdropping, secretly listening in a private conversation is a violation of privacy and also a breach of trust. Nothing good was ever learned from eavesdropping, so mind your business and let others mind theirs. Don't take to heart all the people. Don't take to heart all that people say. Eventually, you may hear your servant curse you, and face it, your heart has overheard how often you curse others. The teacher warns us not to fall into this trap of attentively listening to conversations that are not meant for your ears. Doing so can lead to hurt feelings and big problems. He reminds us that we too have said something unseemly about others in private. How would we know this? He has done the same thing himself, let off steam in the heat of the moment and said things that were not meant for someone in particular to hear. This in no way means that doing such things is good, but it happens. Don't eavesdrop. You may hear your servant cursing you, for you know how often you yourself curse others. Often those that criticize others reveal what he himself lacks. What's the problem with eavesdropping? It is a selfish and is irrelevant action, often done with the intention of hearing something good about oneself. It too often backfires. The person eavesdropping can often be scrounging for information that they can use for gossip and slander against another. The Bible has much to say about staying away from gossips and slander. Don't let even rotten words seep out of your mouth. Instead, offer only fresh words that build others up when they need it the most. That way, your good words will communicate grace to those who hear them. Ephesians chapter 4, verse 29. Take care with the things you say and don't lie or spread gossip or talk about improper things. Psalms chapter 34, verse 13. A gossip will reveal your secret to avoid the company of people who talk openly and foolishly. Proverbs chapter 20:19. I think the gossip is different from venting your problems about if you're talking about somebody, the problems you're having a situation with. That was always my intention. Solomon told us that nothing good will come from listening to gossip. And listening to gossip is like eating cheap candy. Do you really want junk like that in your belly? What's gossip is like a delicious first course. It is devoid with pleasure and penetrates deeply. Proverbs 50:18. During the World War II, there was a slogan going around, loose lips sink their ships. The meaning of this was the unguarded talking about confidential things could have a disastrous effect on the nation as a whole if you spoke indiscreetly and open about confidential and or sensitive information. Someone could very well be listening who could use it against you. And Paul wrote to the church in Ephesians, wanting them to be cautious of how they treated one another. Instead of giving into selfish attitude, they were to be kind and forgiving to one another. Paul wrote, let all the bitterness and wrath and anger, clamor and perpetuate animosity, resentment, strife, fault finding, and slander, and be put away from you, along with every kind of malice, all spitefulness, verbal abuse, rallying and be kind and helpful to one another, tender-hearted, compassionate, understanding, forgiving, and one another readily and freely, just as God and Christ also forgave you. Ephesians chapter 4, verse 31-32. When we spy or eavesdrop due to selfish motives, we are crossing the line. Envy, jealousy, or desire for revenge may wrongly motivate us to eavesdrop or spy on someone. If our intent is to use the information gained to give ourselves an unfair advantage or to harm someone else, then eavesdropping is wrong. It is dishonest and unloving. Romans chapter 13:8, Luke chapter 6, verse 31. Christians are to be blameless and innocent, children of God without blemish in the midst of a crooked and twisted generation. Eavesdropping out of nothingness is being sneaky. Sneaky people listen on people's conversations because they're sneaky and have an agenda to them. We often don't want to keep it to ourselves, so eavesdropping becomes the first step to gossiping. If you want wisdom, stay away from eavesdropping and stay in minding your own affairs, not worrying about people's affairs, like worrying about my affairs. Like, why are you so worried about me? Like, I don't understand how you get so much attention, these people around here. In California, enacted the Invasion of Privacy Act in order to protect this right. The legalization criminalized and authorizing privacy evasion by using electronic devices to eavesdrop on confidential conversations, press, and pinnacle. That's why I told my caseworker I don't feel comfortable having a meeting there. Go to other place, like outside, to a restaurant. It's abuse. Spying, stalking, invading your personal space or belongings is also abusive because it degrades personal boundaries. Verbal abuse is the most common form of emotional abuse, but it's often unrecognized because it may be suitable in district. I think this is how I think the old neighbor, he like overheard things I was talking to in my place, and I think he like spread rumors about me over and people in the complex. People like staring at me funny, like I don't even know these people. I don't talk to anybody up here. Like, I don't talk to none of the neighbors or socialize with anybody up here. Mostly stick to myself, chill. Not trying to cause drama or none of that stuff, like, or cause anybody drama. It's just the people, like, that you live by are some dramatic. Only thing I'm basically worried about living here is minding my business, reading my Bible, practicing my faith, play music, and not be social for anybody up here. Like, maybe share the gospel. That's it. I don't want to be nobody's friend up here. Like, I don't want to talk to the neighbors. But you're always going to get that one messed up person that lives by you that's dramatic, hostile, like, likes drama and wants to cause problems for no reason. And it depends on how you react to it. How are you going to react to this dramatic person? But I don't know why they got this thing about me. Like, I'm just a regular person. Live in an apartment. Why are you so worried about my life? Am I a celebrity to you? I'm not a celebrity. I'm not famous. I'm just a regular human being trying to obey Christ, and live out my Christian life. And nah, I don't think I'm better than anybody. So don't put that in my mind. Twisted view of me. You don't know me. They make what do you call it? If labels stereotype you, like stereotyping people when they don't even know you. Like, stereotype. Maybe I stereotype sometimes. God forgive me if I stereotype. Forgive me for me. I don't mean to stereotype nobody, like, but I just go off what I see people how they act, like, especially the old neighbors, like how they act toward me. And I don't even know that guy. I never had no conversations with him ever in my life living there. I just stay to myself. I just mind my business. Like, you got some type of anger to me. Like, for what? What did I do to you? I don't understand. Other than play my music. So I was guessing my Christianity. That's what I was thinking about. He doesn't like me because of the way I believe I'm a Christian. Like, it doesn't matter, but that was the whole issue. That's what I felt inside me. But he play his music too, like, we're loud. He can't say he didn't. Like, people are so hypocritical. They want to talk about your bad things, but they don't talk about the bad things they do. So French people, they said, a stereotype is oversimplified, widely held belief about a person or a group of people. Like when they say like when somebody doesn't, they label all black people as drug dealers because of their race, and that's not true. Stereotypes are firmly held assumptions based on generalizations, whether true or not, limited interactions with a person or a group, or even hearsay. Some examples of stereotypes are French people are the best lovers, women can't drive, and all Irish people eat potatoes. Some stereotypes sound positive, such as the statement that all Asian people are gifted in academics, or all women are nurturers. However, stereotypes are most often negative and smack of racism and sexism. There is no question that racism and sexism are sinful, as both are motivated by hate or willful ignorance. Believers are called to love, not hate, and to be informed and not ignorant. Sometimes stereotypes contain a grain of truth, which is why they are used and accepted by so many people. The Apostle Paul quoted a pagan poet who stereotypically described the people of Crete. One of Crete's seven prophets has said it: Cretans are always liars, evil brutes, lazy gluttons. The saying is true. Titus chapter 1, verse 12 or 13. Paul was not saying that such a blanket statement is universally applicable to every Cretan. Only that Titus needed to be aware of the evil proclivities that existed within the culture where he ministered elsewhere. Paul says that the cross of Christ is a stumbling block to Jews and foolishness to Gentiles. Obviously, not every Jew stumbled at the gospel, and not every Gentile saw the message as foolish, or no one would be ever saved. Paul's point was not to establish a stereotype, but to acknowledge the general response that people of different cultures had toward the gospel. And we must understand the culture we are trying to reach in order to effectively evangelize. While even negative stereotyping may have a kernel of truth, there is always danger in making a sweeping judgment about a group of people. Stereotypes are purposely generalizations and often exaggerations, but God created each of us uniquely. No two people are exactly the same, even if they are part of the same gender, race, or culture. A certain group may share a language, skin color, style of dress, or even the same mannerism, habits, or speech patterns, such as the colloquial use of the word y'all. And such similarities lead to stereotypes, but every group is still comprised of individuals with varying character traits and physical features. Stereotyping takes the rich history of an entire culture of a race and boils it down to simplistic and often unfair notions of what individuals are like. Believers should always take stereotypes with a grain of salt, and we must be aware of the proclivities, trends, and general characteristics of the people we minister to, but we should also strive to people as individuals. When we hear a stereotype, we should recognize it as such and discern it. It is unfair It is fair or unfair, remembering that the Lord does not look at the things people look at. People like to look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. First Samuel chapter 16 verse 7. But the Lord said to Samuel, do not look on the thing's appearance or in the height of his stature, because I have rejected him. For the Lord sees not as man sees. Man looks on the outward appearance, but the Lord looks on the heart. As Christians, we are to become more like Christ, which means seeing others as he sees them and sharing his heart for them. As we walk in obedience to God, we'll be able to release our perceive or unfair notions of others and judge correctly. How can you deal with a next door neighbor that acts hostile and aggressive towards me when they play loud? Yeah, whatever. Oh yeah, and when he reported me to the landlord about my music, complained to me about my music, he up and did the same thing before he left, like trying to be all shady and smart. I think he's like so big and bad and all this type of stuff. Like, why do you doing the same thing that you complain about me doing? Like, do you think you're right too? But acting that way, it doesn't solve anything. Doing that, just look at you as a fool. Like, you told me not to play my music loud, but you're doing it too. Like, trying to be smart and retaliate. Because he has like this type of ignorant mindset. I don't know what you call it. Psychological issues, Christian phobe. The real thing is, like, he don't like my Christian music. Like, it's not for anybody. It's not for anybody, my Christian music that I play. It's for me, my enjoyment. You don't like it? Guess what? I don't care. I don't care. Like, what am I supposed to care that you don't like my music? Does it say, okay, I'm not going to play this music because it offends you? I'm so sorry. No, that's not how it goes. These people are so weird. Only people, only a guy that's low level, a low mind, a low values, insecure, that has to pick on that female, and you're with a female. I don't think he would do such a things like that if a man lived here. Like, try to bully a man the same as you. Supposed to be a man. So they leave. Common sense about you. So I have this disorder too. If you want to know why I act the way I do, short attention span. Your attention span is how long you can focus on something or spend on a task before you need a break or get distracted. Or everyone gets distracted from time to time. Those with short attention spans frequently have trouble focusing on tasks and conversations. And the main sign of a short attention span is having a hard time focusing on tasks. This can be frustrating since it may seem to others that you don't care about the task. But having trouble focusing or having a mind that wanders is not the same as being defiant or not caring. The signs of the short attention span also include making careless mistakes, trouble reading long texts. I get frustrated long, but I like to read it. Trouble reading long texts, seeming not to listen, leaving tasks partially done. A hard time managing time or keeping materials organized. Forgetting activities or appointment. Sometimes a short attention span is a temporary response to extra stress or stimulation in your life, but if it lasts, it may be a sign of attention disorder or mental health condition. Depending on how short attention span shows up, it may be a sign of one of those conditions. ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADDH may be the cause of your short attention span. If you feel restless and unmotivated or fidgety when trying to focus on a task, some people with ADHD Also have hyperactivity, the need for a movement. If you go too long without moving, you have trouble focusing. Attention defect hyperactivity disorder makes it harder to focus, pay attention, and sit still. Most people who have ADHD are also very sensitive to what other people think or say about them. This is sometimes called rejection sensitive dysphoria or RSD, which is not a medical diagnosis but a way of describing certain systems associated with ADHD. Dysphoria comes from a Greek word that means hard to bear. People who have RSD don't handle rejection well. They get very upset if they think someone has shunned or criticized them, even if that's not the case. So, PTSD. Women who double the risk of PTSD, that's because they're more likely to experience a sexual assault. And they also blame themselves for a traumatic event more than men do. Previous experience with trauma, like childhood abuse, like I've been through. Experiencing sexual abuse in your childhood can have a wide range of effects on you in adulthood. Some adult survivors experience no or very few mental health problems, while others experience many and severe mental health problems. Sexual abuse is a kind of trauma, and the effects of trauma include a complex combination of factors. The amount of any kind of other trauma you may have experienced, your age when you experienced abuse, and your relationship to persons who abuse you, how long the abuse lasts, and how people in your life have responded to your disclosure, whether you've been believed. Some of the most common effects you experience may be as follows. Fear your abuser may have sworn you to seriously affecting you and members of your family. They may have told you that if you tell something bad will happen. If you tell something bad will happen, sexual abuse is usually accompanied by correlation, bribery, physical and emotional abuse, and threats. You would have been afraid to tell because of what the consequences might be. A punishment, blame, abandonment, or not being believed. Psychological effects. Survivors of sexual abuse are 3 times more likely to develop psychological disorders in adulthood. Adults with a history of sexual abuse often present for treatment with secondary mental health issues, which can include the following: depression or feeling low, and post-traumatic stress, low self-esteem, eating disorders, drug addiction, alcohol use, dependency, and suicide attempts and self-harm, or self-mutilation, anxiety, dissociative disorders, or episodes of disclosing or spitting out, personality disorders, and psychosis, and bipolar disorders. Adults with a history of abuse as a child, especially sexual abuse, are more likely than people with no history of abuse to become frequent users of GP, emergency, and medical care services. Adults with a history of child sexual abuse are more likely than the general population to experience physical health problems, including diabetes, gastrointestinal problems, and arthritis, headaches, and genealogical problems, stroke, hepatitis, and heart disease. How should Christians view the Me Too movement? In 2006, civil rights activist Tara Burke introduced the phrase Me Too as a way to help women who had experienced sexual harassment realize that they were not alone. A decade later, the Me Too movement erupted across cyberspace in response to a tweet posted by actress Lisa Malanio, suggesting that all women who have been the victims of sexual assault post those words in her comment section. Within hours, victims flooded the internet with this Me Too post on Twitter and Facebook. The passionate responses were due in part to sexual abuse and harassment charges coming out of Hollywood. Both men and women stepped forward to accuse former bosses, producers, and others of sexual exploitation in the force. However, as many movements in our cultural climate, the Me Too movement was quickly swept into a political morass that assisted it include abortion rights, pay equally, the gay agenda, and a host of other hot-button issues. According to its founder, Tarana Book, the Me Too movement has lost its potentially weakened as it has been by the addiction of other women's rights issues and leeching its popularity. So while Christians can and should support any attempts to stop the increasing tide of sexual abuses, we should be careful about throwing full support behind any movement that is not Christ-centered. Instead, we should consider what a Christ-centered alternative would be. First, Christ would never want a victim to suffer while getting help. It is unfortunate that it took a handshake to inspire victims to identify the sexual harassment and assault they experienced. It is true that victims have not always been believed. Victims should not be hesitant to contact the police or the company's HR department as appropriate. Such as steps can be intimidating, or even frightened victims should be feel free to ask a friend to help them through process. The church should help with this. Christianity, by its very nature, opposes any and every kind of abuses and exploitations. Any form of mistreatment, especially sexual harassment, is in direct contrast to Jesus' command to treat others as would you have treat us. Matthew chapter 7:12, loving one's neighbor as oneself is a bedrock of the Christian faith, so anyone purporting to follow Christ must submit to those terms. Clearly, any form of sexual intimidation or harassment falls for outside those perpetrators, so Christians can confidently defend and champion anyone who is a victim of either. In Psalms 82:3, God gives His command: defend the weak and the fatherless, uphold the cause of the poor and the oppressed. When someone has been the victim of sexual abuse or assault, Christians should be first on the scene to rescue, comfort, and help him, or to pursue her justice. Our churches should be safe havens for victims, and it should be widely known that sexual overtures of any kind of any level. Unfortunately, the Me Too movement has spread into church too. Victims have recently revealed sexual harassment and assault by several Christian leaders. Um, some prominent and some unknown churches and denominations have found themselves guilty of denial, blaming victim and perpetrating abuse. Considering a large number of godly pastors and ministry leaders, incidents of abuse are rare, but Christians should make an even greater effort to cleanse sexual abuse from churches and ministries and the world at large. The ministry, Grace, and believers like Rachel, their honor are working hard to help victims find justice and healing. A handshake has no power to right wrongs or bring about justice. Instead of joining a movement that may offer 30 seconds of violation, the church needs to walk alongside those victims through the court process and see where justice is done. Churches should teach their young people about acceptable levels of touching and why it matters to God, including healthy ways to date or express interest in another person. Not every church has the resources to provide crisis counseling and legal help for those who find themselves victims of sexual harassment. But they can provide information or organizations that do, and churches can hold their members to a godly standard of sexuality and behavior using church discipline. When the Pope wasn't calling authorities when a crime had been committed, it is unfortunate that it took hashtags to empower victims to seek support and justice. We long for the day when the Me Too belongs only to the world. Because Christians prefer the hashtag, the church helped me. The church helped me. Today is 20. I seriously need to go shopping. Grocery shopping. I have no food here. But yeah. Sorry. I'm not sorry. I couldn't help it. But it was loud. And Christ healed me from my past sexual abuse and stuff like that. Even though I have memories of it. If you need help with National Sexual Assault Hotline, 1-800-656-4673. Sexual assault and abuse is any type of sexual activity that you do not agree to, including appropriate touching, vagina, anal, or oral penetration, sexual intercourse that you say no to, rape, attempted rape, child molestation. Sexual assault can be verbal, visual, or anything that forces a person to join unwanted sexual contact or attention. Examples of this are voyeurism, when someone watches private sexual acts; Ibization, when someone exposes him or herself in public and says sexual contact between family members; and sexual harassment. It can happen in different situations by a stranger or in an isolated place, on a date, or in home, or by someone you know. Rape is a common form of sexual assault. It is committed in many situations, on a date, by a friend or a acquaintance, or when you think you're alone. Educate yourself on date rape, drugs, and it can be slipped into a drink when a victim is not looking. Never leave your drink untainted, no matter where you are. Try to always be aware of your surroundings. And date rape, drugs make a person unable to resist assault, have a memory loss, so the victim doesn't know what happened. Violence against women by anyone is always wrong, whether the abuser is someone you date, a neighbor, a current or past spouse, boyfriend or girlfriend, a family member, an acquaintance, or a stranger. You are not at fault. You did not cause the abuse to occur. You are not responsible for violent behavior towards you by somebody you don't even know. Like, this person got this type of hatred or anger to you. You don't even know why. Like, so it's really not your fault. Like, even if I was talking to me in my own home, like conversating, and they overheard it, they still shouldn't have been listening to me. Like, and that's why I wrote this person's name down and researched him, because he's like shady and grimy, and you need to have people's name in case you have to do something deeper, report him to, like, because you never know what they're up to. You're not at fault. You did not cause the abuse to occur, and you're not responsible for the violent behavior of someone else. If you or someone know has been sexually assaulted, seek help from other family members and friends or community organizations, and reach out for support or counseling, and talk with a healthcare provider, especially if you have been physically hurt. Learn how to minimize your risk of becoming a victim of sexual assault or sexual abuse before you find yourself in an uncomfortable, hurting situation. And learn how to get help for sexual assault and abuse below. Another important part of getting help is knowing if you are in an abusive relationship. There are clear signs to help you if you are being abused. Take steps right away if you've been sexual assaulted. Get away from the attacker to a safe place as fast as you can. Then call 911 or the police. Call a friend or family member you trust. You also call a crisis center or a hotline to talk with a counselor. One hotline is National Sexual Assault Hotline at 1-800-800-657. No, 800-656-HOPE 4673. Feelings of shame, guilt, fear, and shock are normal. It's important to get counseling from a trusted professional. And do not wash the comb or clean any part of your body. Do not change clothes if possible so the hospital staff can collect evidence. And do not touch or change anything at the scene of the assault. Go to the nearest hospital emergency room as soon as possible. You need to be examined, treated, or for any injuries and screened for possible sexual transmitted diseases, STDs, or pregnancy. The doctor will collect evidence using a rape kit for fibers, hair, saliva, semen, or clothing that the attacker may have left behind. You or the hospital staff can pull the police from the emergency room to file a report. Ask the hospital staff about possible support groups you can attend right away. You can help someone who is abused or who has been assaulted by listening and offering comfort. Go with him or her to the police, the hospital, or to counseling. And reinforce the message that that she or he is not at fault, and that it is natural to feel angry and ashamed. If you're a victim of violence at the hands of someone you know or love, or you are recovering from an assault by a stranger, you're not alone. Get immediate, get support, help. The National Domestic Violence Hotline can be reached 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at 800-800-799, SAFE 7233. Spanish speakers are available. When you call, you will first hear a recording and may have a hold. Hotline staff offer crisis intervention and refers, if requested, to connect women to shelters and can send out written information. And let's go through the red flags on men. How does he treat other women? What are the red flags in a relationship? Red flags are warning signs that indicate unhealthy or maladaptive behavior. They are always not recognizable at first, which is part of what makes them so dangerous. However, they tend to grow bigger and become more prevalent over time. Overly controlled behavior. Over controlled behavior is a common red flag. People that try to control your movements, decisions, or beliefs are more concerned about what they want than what is best for you. In a healthy relationship, there is compromise and understanding around differences. Not one person controls the other person's actions. He does not respect you. It's no secret that respect is one of the cornerstones in relationships. It means that you value and appreciate your partner as a person. If a man does not respect you, there is a high chance that the relationship will turn toxic. He pressures you. If he repeatedly pressures you to do things you don't want to do, it automatically means that he does not have your best interests at heart. Because setting healthy boundaries in a relationship is how both partners make sure that they feel comfortable and safe. He is so far of pride. There's a number of scriptures that talk about the consequences of pride. Isaiah chapter 2:12, James chapter 4:6, Proverbs 16:18, just to name a few. It is a character trait that God condemns and will judge harshly. Therefore, if a man is prideful and believes in his own strength more than in God's, it is a big red flag in Christian relationships. gets angry quickly. Having a hot temper shows that a man has no self control and is led by his emotions. However, in a relationship, both partners should be patient and kind when dealing with each other. So if he gets angry quickly, it might be a sign that your relationship will suffer from it in the future. He has no patience. As mentioned before, patience is a key component in every relationship. If your partner is not patient, the likelihood that you will make it long term is very slim. He does not honor his parents, or how does he treat his parents? Even though family dynamics can be complicated at times, but the relationship he has with his parents shows you how he deals with authority. Pay close attention to a man that repeatedly speaks bad about his mother and father and fails to honor them, at least for giving him life. He is manipulative and deceptive. One of the most common deal breakers in Christian dating is a partner that manipulates the other person for his own benefit. If a man uses manipulation or deceit to gain control over you, it means he is using you for his own benefit. He is very jealous. Unnecessary jealousy can lead to a lot of drama in a relationship. A man who constantly exhibits unhealthy jealousy behaviors might subconsciously harbor feelings of inferiority, and it could be a sign of low self esteem and eventually become a bigger issue in the relationship if not dealt with immediately. He is secretive. Being private is good, being secretive, not so much. Honesty is very important to the health of a relationship. If your partner seems to exclude you from certain areas of your life, you will have a hard time to connect with him on a more intimate level. He does not compromise. For a relationship to work out, compromise is a non negotiable part of love. If you find yourself constantly giving in to make him happy, while he never does and it is an issue. If you desire to have a successful relationship, both partners need to be willing to compromise in order for both of you to feel valued and appreciated. He makes you feel stupid. The point is a big red flag in men because it's a sign of toxicity. If your boyfriend puts you down, ridicules your thoughts or opinions, and makes you feel stupid, he is not treating you with respect and love. If you feel unsure and insecure because of your partner, it's a big deal breaker. His life does not honor God. Bad company corrupts good character, and if his actions repeatedly show you that he does not honor God, then it means that you're unequally yoked, and therefore the relationship is doomed to fail. He is unforgiving. We all know that forgiveness can be really hard, but it's so critical in a relationship because the truth is very couples faces challenges at times. Therefore, both partners need to be willing to look beyond the offenses at times and forgive their loved ones. Mhm. So dating unbelievers is no, 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 no. You want to date somebody, say, a Muslim guy. There's really attractive guys in Arab countries, attractiveness, but they're mostly Muslims. You can't date a Muslim and you're a Christian because you're two are going opposite directions of your beliefs, and there would be a hassle, like, because your belief says this and that, and then his belief says this, which is untrue and perverts the Bible, perverts God, Jesus. And it's not being loyal to Jesus, dating somebody that's not truly a believer like you. No, a Christian should not date, marry an unbeliever. Do not be bound together with unbelievers for this partnership. Have righteousness and lawlessness, or what fellowship has light with darkness, or what harmony with Christ with Bela, or what has a believer in common with an unbeliever. 2 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 14, 15. Unfortunately, some Christians hope that they convert that person he or she is dating or marrying, and they often think that their spirituality is strong enough so that they can witness or motivate the other person to convert through their patience and love. Why do they think this? 3 reasons. They love the person and are emotionally blinded, and they are naive or they do not know God's word. And this may sound harsh, but something as serious as marrying an unbeliever needs to be dealt with properly and to the point. We are not to compromise the will of God and endanger our spiritual well-being. All we need to do is look at the Old Testament to see why God says not to marry unbelievers. And this is what God said to the Israelites: when the Lord your God shall bring you into the land where you are entering to possess it, and shall clear away many nations before you, the Hittites and the Gershonites and the Amorites and the Canaanites and the Perizzites and the Hivites and the Jezreelites, 7 nations greater and stronger than you. 2. And when the Lord your God shall deliver them before you, and you shall defeat them, then you shall utterly destroy them. You shall make no covenant with them, and show no favor to them. Furthermore, you shall not intermarry with them. You shall not give your daughters to their sons, nor shall you take their daughters for your sons, for they will turn your sons away from following me to serve their other gods, their false gods. Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 1, verse 4. The reason not to marry an unbeliever is that he or she can influence you away from the Lord Jesus. Don't be so naive to think that you will never fall. It happens all the time. If you marry an unbeliever and have children, how will it affect your spirituality to have the parents divided over spiritual things? It is a help or a hindrance to spiritual health. To their spiritual health, obviously, it is a hindrance. And unfortunately, too many people do not take into account the extremely serious situation of children and their eternal destiny. Yet, because of love and because they listen to their hearts over the word of God, many people marry unbelievers anyway and often suffer dire consequences. If you're already married to an unbeliever, then you need to love him or her as you can set a good example of being a Christian and pray for your spouse's salvation. You cannot leave your spouse unless there is a physical abuse, adultery, or if you're abandoned. You need to stick it out and seek the Lord. I'm done. Ready to go. Bye. Ready to prayer. I would say a silent prayer. Father God, protect me from my enemies and protect my privacy and protect my protect my home and give me wisdom daily and I pray I get to go to see other countries and help other people, help the homeless as I come deeper in your knowledge and teach me more deeper on your Bible and not care what goes on around me. Really give me wisdom, bold as a lion, and help my anxiety. Amen.